right, that's good.
In case it looks funny.
Actually took it 57 times. How did I do that? I have a lot to do it. Oh my goodness.
Okay. We'll go again.
I hope it doesn't turn.
It won't turn. It's your phone.
I'm just letting you know it's 25 past 7.
Too late, honestly. Is it on now?
Can you just start talking?
She said we should start. So, what are you saying? You should introduce it. All right. Hello everyone. Good evening, wonderfully made women and of course, wonderfully made men watching. First of all, I want to say sorry. We are taking, we took a lot of time. We had to arrange and the network was playing up, so we're really, really sorry we're starting late. We're really, really sorry. This is Wonderfully Made Woman Talk Show on WMTV. How have you been? It's been a while I've been live on, on this show, and that's because we've been so busy. But hey, this show is about to bring series that will blow your mind. This is Wonderfully Made Woman Talk Show, and this aim of this show is to address issues relating to women in a holistic context. Like I always say, this show is for every woman, every man who is born of a woman. So if you are a woman, this show is for you. If you are a man and you are born of a woman, definitely this show is for you. I remain your host, Ehino, and just to let you know that the show is on every Friday at 11 a.m. Today is just a one-off that we're doing this evening, and that's because one of the late former councillor, Councillor Mick, he was a councillor for Clayton at the time we started Wonderfully Made Woman in 2011, passed on, and today happened to be his funeral. And we thought that it was necessary that we'll be there this morning. So from next week, this show will definitely start at 11 a.m. Today's topic is a very, very sensitive one, and is a topic that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And because of how sensitive it is, I've not been able to really address it, but I believe that this month we'll be able to talk about it. We'll be able to find out the causes. We'll be able to see ways that people can reduce this thing that is so rampant in our community. Our series for this month of August is Women's Stories for Change. Stories that will change our lives, stories that will get us thinking. And we are going to be making space to speak the unspeakable. This month and today, we're starting with a series, Suicide, the Unsaid. When you hear suicide, what does that, what does it mean to you? What do you think of? Why do people commit suicide? Why do people get fed up of life to the extent of wanting to take their own lives? My guest today, a friend, like a sister now, we've known for years. She's actually one of those who kickstarts the Affairs of the Heart, the relationship forum in our organization, who will be sharing her story of her uncle who lost his life early this year. I want you to stay tuned, invite your friends, share this video, change somebody's life for good. I'm going to leave my guest to introduce herself very well. And first of all, I want to say thank you for coming.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate she actually came before me today. And she's been helping to set up. So thank you. That's why you're my sister. I really, really appreciate the fact that you were able to come today. I know you're busy with all sorts. So I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself to the viewers.
Okay, it's a pleasure being here, Eleanor. I was really grateful when you invited me on your show. My name is Reverend Fujo Malaika, and many people know me as Malaika. I've got a few roles. I'm an interfaith minister, which means that the school that I went to, I'm trained to be a people's minister, and I'm in the community ministering for people of all faiths and people of no faith. I've got a lot of experience in peace and forgiveness workshops and personal and spiritual development, and I've been quite active in the community for some years now. And my most recent project is me and my boys. We've opened up a flower shop on Oxford Road, which has had its ups and downs, as we would know, working with your own children. But it's been good, and there's been a lot of healing, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's almost like I've been able to put my ministry into my flowers, really, because, you know, on Sunday I'm going to bless a baby, but I'll be providing some of the stuff to help the day go along. And so it's like doing two things for the price of one. Even though I've been quite community active for many years, and I'm passionate about women and people and peace and teaching people spiritual and personal development through personal journeying and through family circumstances, I'm really running the baton of mental health and well-being. So I've got lots of family members in my family who have got mental health. I noticed in the last 2 or 3 years that much of my life, on and off, I've suffered with depression, and I want to be quite open and honest about that and be able to have open and engaging conversations around it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming out. You know, this is one of the topics that people do not want to talk about. So you are so brave to be able to come out this evening to talk about it, and I really appreciate you. It says that suicide is the act of intentionally causing one's death. Why do people do it? What is the cause of it? He stated that depression, substance use, mental health are risk factors. And what I found, you know, really, really disturbing this evening was when I tried to do a research on, you know, the mental health statistics. If you want to check, you can go on www.mentalhealth.org.uk. It says that it's common cause of death for men aged 20 to 49 years in England and Wales. That's so disturbing. Between 2013 to 2016, 18,220 people with mental health problems took their own lives in the UK. In 2016, 5,608 suicides were recorded in Great Britain. Of this, 75% were male and 25% were female. It's really, really sad. So I want to ask you, Malaika, why do people, want to take their own lives before we go into the story that you
Yes.
have?
Well, I did some research because I lost my uncle in January, and I immediately started watching documentaries and reading up research. And there's a professor in Glasgow that's been researching suicide for some years. And what I've learned as a whole is a few things. I've learned that you've got different types of suicide. Some people constantly have suicide episodes and try and take their own life current lots and lots and lots of
All
different
the
times in
time.
their life. It's like an illness in itself. They have suicide tendencies.
Wow.
I even know one person who her husband knows that she has suicide tendencies, and so he will ask her on some days, "Are we safe today?"
Really?
Yes.
So does the person go for medical checkup?
Yes, and she gets lots of support around it, and she speaks about it quite openly. Sometimes it can be that an incident has happened in someone's life, which then that brings them to want to make that decision. And so, many years ago, you'd hear things like they're looking attention. It's people just wanting people to notice them more. But what this researcher has noticed is that the brain and that soul is struggling in life.
So is it as a result of depression? Is it as a
It's
result?
a number of different things. So it can be a result of depression. It can be a result of mental health. It can be a number of different things. I personally, and from what I've read and what I've learned, it is from mental health, and that the brain becomes locked in a real tight square box, and that at that moment they can't see a way out of whatever the problem is.
Wow.
Or whatever they're going through.
You mean they can't?
They can't
think of
see no
a
light.
solution,
And it can actually be quite frightening when you see the human person in that state. They're not in a normal state like us
Wow.
now.
So how do
They've
you
gone to-
identify that?
Well, it's interesting because, some of them isolate themselves, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, like my uncle went home and just locked his doors and stayed alone for days and did it to himself. Then so we're unable to identify it in somebody else sometimes because they will recluse themselves and go away on their own and do it. The woman who I know who's got suicide tendencies, she made a comment that a friend of hers said to her, but the day you was going to do that, you was laughing and you was happy.
Really?
Because you show the face to the world, don't you? Like everything's fine and everything's okay. But what's going on inside? I think, even some days I walk down the street and I'm feeling a bit low today. Not literally today, but on some days. And people shock me and they'll say, "Oh, you look so well." And I kind of jump because inside I don't really feel that well. Do you but we put this brave face to the world, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah. I think somebody was talking to me, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? And she was saying there was a time in her life she was, she was looking for a child, and she had a couple of failed IVFs. We actually brought her to the show before. And she was saying there was a time she used to hear voices telling her, maybe she's in the kitchen and she's cooking with a knife, and she hears a voice, telling her to stab herself and all that.
Yes.
So when those things are happening, how do you know? I mean, for a family member, in your uncle's case, what was the cause? Did you know?
My uncle's case was very different. He had a very full life. He had a big career. He had a partner. He had a son. He was the to-go guy, my uncle.
Oh.
Everybody went to him for when they wanted something.
Wow.
Very tall, 6 foot, very handsome. And he had a very, very full life. He travelled 2-3 times a year. He was financially secure. But an incident happened at work.
Oh.
And it happened on the Thursday. And by the Saturday, he took his own life.
Wow.
So that was just one incident in his life.
Not that he had,
He didn't have no reoccurring, he had no depression, he had no form of mental health. I did his funeral, because I'm a minister. And when I was in the church and I stood in front of the congregation, I was shocked. And every time I say this story at Goose Pimples, the church was packed. Brian was a very, very loved and popular man.
Wow.
There was people there from all eras of his life. He was 58 when he took his life.
Wow.
There were
Wow.
people from his college, from his school, from the first job at the airport that he'd remained friends with. All these different pockets of people. The place was that packed. People couldn't sit down.
So
That was one incident
yeah.
that made him go down that road.
And you mean that if somebody can be happy today, and one incident
Yes.
is enough to,
Yes.
want to end your
Yes.
life?
Yes.
Wow.
And people often think, because especially in our Afro-Caribbean community, people often then think it's a sin and it's wrong. And
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
was
go
gonna come to that. I was gonna come to that.
Yes.
So when your uncle died, I'm really sorry about that because I know then I was
Yes.
chatting with you.
Yes.
How did you feel as a family member?
I
What
re-
was the effect of it?
I remember when my aunt told me that so I can do death. I can do death because I had a close death at the age of 18. My grandmother who raised me, she left me, she died, and plus through my work and my experience,
minister.
I get death and I can do it. If I hear someone's died, I just pick up my bags and I'm coming to support you. And I've buried 2 aunties before this uncle. I did the funeral arrangements, I did the service. I can do death, but this was very different.
Wow.
And I remember when my aunt said Brian's dead, I said he had a car accident. Was he sick? And everything I said, she said no.
No.
And I said he fell down the stairs. Something happened. I said someone murdered him. He had a car accident. And she was crying and she just kept saying no, no, no. And then when she said the police are investigating, and I said no, auntie, because it was almost that wasn't something you were going to consider.
Oh my
Your brain doesn't want to go there. It's just a complete blank. And when we realised that it wasn't foul play, it wasn't no murder, that it was him, I felt very lost. It was the first time that I'd experienced this type of grief, and it wasn't the fact that I wasn't going to see my uncle again, because I get that. It was the fact of how he left us. It was the fact that he was in a place that time where we would have reached, he could have reached out to us, and he didn't reach out to us. There were so many hundreds and hundreds of people he could have reached out to. And in my grieving, that was my frustration. The fact that whatever had happened at work, whatever went on, which we still don't know yet, we're waiting to find out, that it didn't matter. And to know he was alone in them last 48 hours, just thinking of what his mind would have been going through, and how destitute and how alone he would have felt in them last 2 hours.
Wow.
For a man who gives, for a man who's
People
really
expect
served
him to-
his purpose on the world. He was the salt of the earth in any world, in any community he was part of. And that was my frustration more than anything. But then I spent days just sobbing. I'd be in my flower shop making flowers. And I would just be sobbing and sobbing. Even when I looked at the congregation before the service, I did stand there and cry, and I didn't feel embarrassed, because I thought, I'm human. And even though I'm his niece and I'm here doing his service, I'm feeling it today. And I just sat there for a few minutes and I just sobbed. And then I got myself together and I delivered an amazing service.
Wow.
So it wasn't the fact that I wouldn't see him again.
It was the way
The way he did it. And then I began to think of other people in the past who had known, who had done it. Not very close to me, but they tended to be connected to people who I knew. And it was at that point that it then did make me realise that this is a real different type of grieving.
Wow.
It's a very, very different type of grieving.
It's really sad, there was a day I watched a video on social media. Thank you everyone watching. And this man was, I think the wife or the partner was cheating on him. And he went into the car and, put the petrol and all that. I don't know if you watched it. And he went in the car and set himself on fire. So I'm thinking in my head, what gets people to that stage where they feel that, there's nothing to live for?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's a burden in my heart. If
Yes.
you're listening or watching this evening, you're going through whatever it is, depression, loneliness, it can be anything. Speak out. Speak out. Don't stay in isolation. It is very, very dangerous for you to have a problem and not want to talk about it. Especially in these days of social media, where everyone is posing as if everything is
It's
all
okay.
well, everything is okay.
And what
I'm beautiful.
I've learned over the many
Yeah.
years is that is a facade that people have and present these lifestyles.
like a mask on their face.
They present themselves. Not everyone, because some people truly are happy.
Yeah.
But you get a lot of people that they present themselves as they're happy and their world is wonderful, and they don't just portray it in social media. They portray that everywhere.
Wow.
And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is being honest and open. We come from cultures that are not passionate about therapy, but they're not passionate about sharing what's going on.
Yeah.
They're not passionate about really getting into the salts and the wounds of what's really going on for you.
And I think that also has to do with religion as well.
Religion
Because
and our culture,
and culture, because when you start to talk about your problem and you find that somebody else has a bigger problem, so to say, they make you feel as if, what's wrong with you? Or if you're a Christian, for example, and you're saying, oh, I'm depressed, in our community, as a Christian, you shouldn't even say that word.
But that's a condition that's been passed on. I mean, I remember when I was first ordained 6 years ago, and it was about a year and a half after that, I had a depressive episode. And I remember friends saying to me, really close friends, you can't be depressed because you're a minister now. And that is not true.
That's not true.
My ministry is my work, but I'm still human.
Exactly.
And I've still got personal journey that I've been through. And for me, it's really vital that we have these open conversations more.
Yeah, it's
because
very important.
it's almost like you're hiding this taboo subject, and it's almost like it's choking you from inside.
Yeah.
And it affects you emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Exactly.
I've got 2 boys, and I'm very open with them. And the 3 of us can talk about anything. There's very little. And when I say to them, what's really going on for you, how are you really feeling today, they know I don't mean, oh,
Just
I'm
say
okay,
fine,
Mum.
yeah.
And they'll start saying, well, this is upsetting me, I don't like this friend said this, my dad did this. And that is how I've raised them, because I want them to know that being an open soul is so important.
Yeah.
And it's not just good for you, but you're also teaching others to be the same. And we kind of get locked in a place of this pride. I call it the secret act code in our black community, where everything's a secret. No, you don't talk that. You can just keep shush. Everything's so quiet. And everything just gets put under the carpet, under the carpet. Well, I'm talking it. I am talking it, and I want to encourage others. At the moment, we're so gifted in the world that we live in, because well-being and mental health and support systems are just so viable and out there. Some is free, some is paid. Some is cheap and some's expensive. But we're quite honoured that we've kind of got to not shut the door on our community, but some self-care is really important, and the sharing is a way to do that,
And I think another thing is, people, when they want to share, they're always afraid that people might laugh at them.
Yeah.
For example, you're a minister, and somebody already told you,
me I can't
you
get
can't
depressed. No.
Oh, it's wonderfully made woman. She counsels people.
No.
Why should she be sad?
No.
But at the end of the day, we are human.
The other thing is, people have stories, You've had your story.
Oh, yes.
I've had mine that we've shared publicly.
Yeah.
But, if you knock on anyone's door, everybody has had a story. My theory is this, whether you've got a faith or not, when, as human beings, for us to survive, we have to have challenges and we have to have positives. Without the two, we're not building as a soul. We're not growing as a human, because the challenges are there to not just nurture and grow us, but also prepare us for the next challenge that's going to come. Now, ideally, our minds trick us that we only want it positive, we only want great things, and God's punishing us when we're having challenging experiences, and that's not true. The truth of the matter is, whether you've got a faith or not, God or life, they have to give us challenges. But what is surprisingly to us is how we manage it, and some souls can't manage it. That's where you come now with the mental health.
Yeah.
That's where we experience different types of illnesses, and it's become so common and so on the radar at the moment. We've all got labels and names for mental health, and I'm finding that 9 out of 10 people that you're crossing paths with, they have or are or will suffer some form of mental health.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I remember years ago when I was going through challenges, and I had a lot of friends saying, "Oh, don't say that. Don't be negative," because as a Christian, you grow up with so much. You have to be positive. You have to say positive things. And I remember one time I was ill. To be honest, I was really ill. I was stressed out, and I said, "Oh, I'm feeling so ill today." My daughter was just about 3 years old, 3 plus, and she ran down the staircase and said, "Mommy, stop it. You're not ill. Say you are strong in Jesus' name. Don't ever say you're ill," because that's what I taught her. But indeed, I was ill. And from time, I realized that when I ask them, "How are you?" it's fine. I'm well. And I had to say no. It's good to say, let the weak say I am strong. But I'm asking, how do you really feel? If you're upset, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, "You know what, I'm not feeling well." To be honest, as a Christian, if we say, "I'm well in Jesus' name," for example, if you go to the GP, you're not going to say, "I'm here today because I'm well." You're going to tell the doctor what is wrong with you. So I'm encouraging people out there. We are in a country, or if you're outside the UK, you have friends, you have families, and you're going through a lot. Days ago, I got a message from a friend outside the UK who was saying, you know what, there is no reason to leave, because she was so depressed. I had to, seek help for her, and I called her. I was like, no, there's so many reasons to be alive.
But what happens is, also this is all my research, it's like your brain is like sticky toffee, and even though you might have a lovely husband, lovely children, a great career, a big house, or whether it's materialistic or non-materialistic, if you're not accepting of yourself, and if you're not able to not self-loathe yourself, you can't see what others can see, and you can't feel what others can feel. There's something else around, your life journey and follows you and comes with you, and it kind of sticks with you. But again, because of our culture, and other cultures will have other behaviours, we're then taught to not share that or expose it, or, well, that's just how we are, that's how we're just made. The good one is, we laugh and joke about it, which black person our age didn't get beat. We all got beat. It's the next generations now that especially because we're in this country, that we can't do that. But even that to some people has been a trauma.
It is, yeah.
And we can give many other examples. And what the things that I've realised in my later years is that it's been interesting, because I've had the shop open since December, and there's been so many customers that have been warmed in and attracted to me, that have privately struggled. Some have been professionals because of the universities there, and you've got the big other public buildings around with professionals in, and they come to me, and you can hear their pain or their sorrow and how they have to wake up every day and put this brave face on. Yeah, but privately they're afraid and they're carrying this pain and this heavy. And then you've got people that would come into the shop that you could see fully.
That something is
homeless people,
yeah.
you know, different sets of people that have different social problems that you could see that they're struggling. And
a lot
life
of people
is
are
tough.
struggling. A lot of people, and please, if you have someone or you know someone whose family or a family member has committed suicide, I want to encourage you that those people need love. They need all the support that they can get. You know, there is this myth or reality, you're a minister of God, where they say, Christians say, anyone who commits suicide is automatically going to hell. You know, I have a friend, I don't want to share, but a friend who lost her husband some time ago. And somebody called me and said, do you know what? My husband actually told me that this person's husband is going to hell. And I said, why? He said, because he committed suicide. He is a man of God. He is born again. He shouldn't be like that. And she went on and went on. And I had to say, can you be still? Do you know the time this person was committing suicide? What was going on in his head?
Honestly.
So as a minister of God,
you're not,
do you say
I
that
don't
that person
that.
is going to hell?
I'll tell you
and
why
not?
The reason why I don't believe it is because when someone wants to take their own life, they're not fully sound-bodied. I've realised now through my research, and when a person takes their own life, they're not fully mentally compassed. They're not.
They don't know what they're doing.
They go to this place.
Is it like a force, a spiritual force, or?
I don't believe it's a spiritual force. I believe it's their choice. But you see, the other thing is, some ministers believe that if you've got mental health, it's because you've not got God in your life, and I don't believe that.
I've never heard of that.
I heard African,
wow.
And I was really taken aback. So that's why I don't believe it's a force. I see it more as it's a form of mental health. Your brain goes to a place. It's a very dark place. No spirit forces come there to do that. It's a form.
So you mean when people in Africa or, you know, just kill themselves, it's not one witch or reason?
I don't believe that. I know.
As a minister of God.
But I know that let's get now.
Yeah.
I know there's witchcraft and that's something different. So I can't vouch for that because it's not an area that I believe that the majority is more of mental health. Yeah. And you know, when someone does take their own life, it's compulsory that they do an inquest.
Of what costs?
I don't know if it's law in other countries, but I know in the UK,
yeah.
whenever a human being in the UK takes their own life, there has to be an inquest. Because they have to prove that it was them that took their own life and it wasn't foul play, or it wasn't someone that manipulated that person. And they go, I mean, my uncle took his life at the end of January. We had the inquest 2 weeks ago. So it's quite a long period.
Wow.
They kind of do a lot of investigation. They speak to a lot of people around him.
Wow.
They had witnesses. Because they have to prove it's quite a serious act.
It is.
It's not no little plain, silly little thing. And before they can close that book on that human being, they have to prove
that the person actually
did it himself or herself.
So the research shows that men actually commit suicide more than women. You know why?
I believe it's because when we have a boy and a girl, we teach the girls to be more open, and we make boys be macho. Don't let things hurt you.
Don't cry.
You're a man.
Wow.
You know, my oldest boy is very macho. He's a real man's man. While my youngest one, his little heart is a bit soft. And you see the girls that choose him, they can see he's a little bit soft. Do you know what I mean? While the bigger boy now, he's a proper man now, and you know, and so I hear him say, because his father's very ill, his father's got dementia and Alzheimer's, my oldest son's father. And when he goes and cares for him, he's very good. And he'll say things, stop being a girl, And I'll say, Jazzy boy, don't stop calling that, stop saying that to your daddy now because he's old school. You don't say things like that to him. And if time is, my youngest son's a bit soft, he'll say, it's just a girl, Mum. It's just because I'm like a girl. So I see the difference where, you know, I think my oldest son, he's going to be a person that might shy.
To say things.
He'll say things to me, but outside of that, while the little one will just talk it anywhere with everybody and anyone who will listen to tell the truth.
Yeah. So it should be
I think
one of the reasons.
I believe it's the way that we raise men.
Men.
We tell them they're strong,
They're
they're providers, they're the man.
Yeah.
Don't cry and don't let it out. While women are
We're
allowed
emotional,
more. We're
yeah.
emotional. We'll sit and cry with sisters. We'll sit and cry with brothers. We will cry alone. While men are taught to be quite macho and to be don't cry. So they struggle more because of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because who can they talk to?
So,
And I believe a lot of men just really want to break down because it's human. I believe, and for me, in my experience, I love it and I admire when I see a man crying. It's joy to my heart because for me, it's like you're a real man. Because they're coming out of the comfort zone, aren't they?
talk, yeah.
To cry and to be open and to be honest. So if they're carrying that much of their life, I believe that, and the research shows you, is that that's the reason why most of them take their own lives.
Because they don't speak out. So
They're not able
if
to.
you're a man watching, or if you're a woman, you have a husband, a son, a brother, a friend, encourage them to speak. And when they do not tell them that they're not man
or
enough,
condemn them.
or condemn them, because naturally men just keep quiet. My son used to be the one that talks a lot, but as he's growing, he's more into himself. So I would call him and say, are you okay? Is everything okay?
Yes.
And he's like, what? You know, are you disturbing me?
Yeah.
Unlike my daughter,
Yeah.
you don't need to ask.
She'll just come and
She
share.
will just share.
Yeah.
So I will have to talk and talk before my son will open up.
Yes.
So I think we should encourage our boys to talk.
No, seriously.
We should encourage our boys because this statistics is so disturbing. It's so disturbing, honestly.
There is ways round it as well, you know, in terms of men. And I'm from a community called More to Life. You can Google it, and they do a lot of personal development. That's why there's not as many there should be. You know, men, we're all women. Us women, we know how men are from when we have relationships with them to, you know, if we've got siblings and then if we have children. And men are just as human as we are, but they're structured and built to have this facade that is not to share and not to be open and not to be honest. And so that then results in the higher suicide in men.
Yeah, because when I checked it today, I was like, wow, what is this? I was really sad about it. And but the good news is in 2016 it really reduced.
Okay.
Yeah, it reduced to 5,608. But that's really, I don't know. I just hope that people get that confidence that they need to carry on with life, regardless of what they're going through. I hear a lot of women say, oh, there's no reason to be alive. You know, I just want to end it all.
The other thing is communication. I mean, how often do you sit with your family at home and, you know, have a meal? And honestly,
like family time.
I call it like a family conference, or, you know, it's about just connecting, and you're not talking about how nice the food is and about memories from the past.
Yeah.
But, you know, you ask your children and your partner, how are you really feeling today? Even if you're feeling awful, we want to hear that. This isn't a space where we're just meant to hear good
testimonies.
We don't want that. I'll go back to More to Life again. Whenever we get together in a group, the first thing we ever do is go around and everyone has 3 minutes to say how they are. Now, all 20 people in that group are not going to say, I'm fine, I'm great,
No.
I won the lottery today. You're going to get people that say, actually, I woke up today and I feel really, really awful. I've been crying, I had this, I had that, I've just not felt I've wanted to live today. And it's been fine to say it in that space. Because what happens with religion and culture and society, they trick us into believing that everything's got to be about testimony, everything's got to be really fine. And the reality of it is, it's not.
No.
The reality of the real human being is that we're human and we do struggle. We do have challenges.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to encourage here today is have more open dialogue about it.
Yeah.
And because what's happening to us is that it's when we're keeping it all locked up and inside and hiding it and putting the facade on that everything's wonderful, it's destroying us emotionally, physically and spiritually. People have no idea what it's doing to us, but it's like it's almost privately choking you around your neck. Yeah.
Then there's this, there's another video I watched about a young girl. You know, she was they were talking about her. She goes on social media, she posts pictures.
Okay.
She's got thousands of likes and comments and all that. You know, her picture, she's beautiful, and most people want her to be like her. But in the real sense of it, she was lonely.
Yeah.
She had no real friends.
Yeah.
She had so many friends, friends on Facebook, but no friend in real life. And that got her depressed, and later they realized that she was living a lonely life.
But it's like Robbie Williams, isn't it? He was the actor that did, he was a really funny comedian.
But still
and then he took his own life. Because what tends to happen is as well, if you're kind of out there with this sense of bubbly humour that you're just there making everyone laugh.
And
you inside when you go home, this is what some people experience, is that when you go home alone at night, it's a very, very different
situation.
It's a very, very different face and a very, very different experience. I know for me, there's times when I've got depressive episodes, but I have got a great support system around me, so I'm constantly in conversation about it.
Yeah. Which is good.
I don't have it, and no one will know.
Yeah.
Even if I'm out there and the world is like, I'm like this to the world, because everyone knows I'm like this, I'm happy and loving and I'm great.
And people have this high expectation of you. I
Yes.
remember in June, I didn't do any live show in June, in July. In June, I was really ill, to be honest. And I got some messages, you're not doing live show. I said, no, I'm not feeling well. I want to rest. I need
self-care.
Yeah, I need to take care of myself. People can watch old videos. And she said, you know what? People are looking up to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me, I don't have to.
No.
There's no way it's written that I must come out every Friday to talk, even when I'm not well.
It's a gift, self-care.
Yeah,
it's a blessing to you, self-care.
And when I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. If I'm having family time, it's family time. If I'm not happy, I don't need to pretend that I'm not happy.
No.
I will call my mom, I will call my dad, I'll call my friends and tell them, you know what, this is what is wrong with me. You know why? Because when you don't talk, that is when depression starts.
Yeah.
Then you want to isolate yourself.
Yeah.
And before you know, this mind or this voice tells you, kill yourself while you're alive. People are looking up to you, and look at yourself now and all that. You are human. Whether you're a minister of God, whether you are a leader, whoever you are, it is okay to be sad. It is okay to talk about your challenges. You don't need to put on this mask of everything is fine. And at the end of the day, a lot of women who want to commit suicide, they go on social media. It's good to celebrate your spouse if you're that type. If things are not going on right, you don't need to pretend. You need to be real. Otherwise, that drains you, takes your confidence, because you've put on that, false light that all is well, we are all fine in the beach, me and my husband, me and my wife. Then it becomes difficult to talk. And I've seen a lot of people come to our service, and when they talk about their challenge, I'm thinking, I actually saw your picture 2 days ago. Oh no, we just did that because we don't want people to look. Honestly,
I
You
mean,
don't owe anybody any explanation of how your life is. The reason people are committing suicide, there's so much expectation of them. If I don't have money, I don't have. If I'm owing, I'm owing.
and your
Yeah,
story
yeah.
as well, whatever your experiences or whatever you're enduring, somebody else has been
It's,
there.
exactly.
It's not just you.
It's not just you.
And then that's another thing. I'm trying to set up another project. I want to do people's life stories because I find that when you're hearing people's life stories, whether they're, you know, high in the world or in communities, or whether they're just local people at the bottom, when your mind has tricked you that only you've experienced a challenge or something horrendous or challenging.
Yeah.
But when you're able to hear other people's life stories,
Then there's a difference.
Yes, because it shows you empathy, it's very cathartic, and it's very, very therapeutic because it's another form of sharing.
Exactly.
It's another form of saying, I'm human,
Yeah.
and this has happened to me.
To me, yeah. The project we're doing that we started in March, which is the Women's Stories for Change, is about sharing your story.
Yeah.
Because for, I think last year up to June, we were talking about success story, and it was so, oh, this one success story, she's great, she's that. But this story for change is to allow women actually talk about their experiences. So we've had women talk about when they were seeking asylum, the challenges they went through. Some talked about their marriages, how it failed. Some talked about the challenges with children. And that gave them that opportunity. I share my story. So when you see people like that, by the time you're talking about it, you feel relieved.
Well,
You
it's
may not
like
get
being
that
with the
help,
girl
yeah.
next door, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's not just you who've suffered or had a challenge. Once you hear other people have journeyed in that way, you then feel a kind of kinship, because you know then that you're not alone.
And there's hope as well.
Exactly.
So that's why it's important to share your story. It's good to share testimonies. It's always good to allow people know the challenges that you've gone through as well, so they know they are not alone in that journey. I was going to ask you, how did you move on from this, when your uncle, how long did it take you to grieve, and how did you move on?
Yeah, well, some of the things that I did, I had to check myself because I've got depressive tendencies as well.
All right.
And so I was really mindful of that. And so as a minister, because I give spiritual counselling, I have to have spiritual counselling.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a therapy counsellor,
Yeah,
you have to have it. Yeah. So because I give people spiritual counselling, I'm in constant spiritual counselling. So that was really good. So I was checking in with someone quite often. What I did do was I stopped all community work. Because I'm a trustee and I do lots of bits of voluntary work. So I stopped that for a time. And making flowers was amazing. Being in that shop, and even if I was crying over them tears, over them flowers while I was doing them up, it was a great healer and a great therapy for me.
Really?
I managed that, and I didn't mind crying in the shop. It was my shop and it was fine as long as I was doing something. I wrote down a lot. I wrote down what I was feeling a lot. I got a book on its own, and I just wrote how angry I was, who I was angry with. I needed to relieve it off somewhere. So I wrote in this book and wrote in this book and cursed and wrote in the book. I also got in touch with a group of suicide survivors. So they're the people who are left behind, and they meet every month. And it was very enlightening to be with other people that knew exactly what we've been through. And just to share and hear and learn as well. There's that going on as well. And there's a couple of other people that I do different other support systems with that I tapped into them as well. So it took me about 4 or 5 months, and then I kind of went back into the community work. I taught.
I was going to say that, were you
Me
just
and my
writing?
aunt,
Yeah.
because my aunt, who I was staying with at the time, it was her youngest brother, and he was a very, very good younger brother. And she'd already buried a twin sister who I buried, and her other sister who I buried. So we were quite a good sense of humour family, and we were saying we can do this.
Encouraging
Even though it
yourself,
was
yeah.
tough, it was like,
Mm.
you know, we can do this, even though it was tough. But we talked about him a lot. We talked about how we felt. We talked about him now going with his other siblings that have passed.
To be on the other
We
side.
talked about him being with his mother, who was my grandmother, and we also began to build a stronger relationship up with his son that we didn't have much of a relationship with before. Only because they live in Warrington. They live in a very white community, and we only see my uncle maybe once every couple of weeks. And there was when we went to bury him, there was a lot of his family, his friends that we didn't know, because he lived in a very white community and we were all in the black community here. So I also became a trustee for another mental health charity, because I felt then at that point that I needed to do something and serve in that world, to get to know the mental health world even better. So I kind of set a system around me. I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody else.
Yeah, it's just the way.
But I knew then that that was what I wanted to do. And so I have got a flower shop. We've just relocated a little bit because there's some renovations going on. But when we open back in October, what my intention is to have the flower shop at the front with flowers, gifts and plants. But at the back, I want to run workshops for mental health and well-being. You know, I want to have that space at the back, that it's a place can come, learn new techniques, learn different ways of living in the mind, because I can teach self-esteem and the power of purpose. I've got a course that I created around forgiveness. I can teach meditation and mindfulness, arts and crafts and making jewellery. They're all parts of, I can't fix anyone, but I definitely know I want to build this space to do workshops, to have these dialogues, to have these conversations, and to encourage that people that suffer with mental health, it's okay. That it's not a bad thing. It's not the devil. It's not God punishing anyone. It's not. I want people to learn to be open and embrace it more. And then connected to that, I can signpost people to other support that's around me, that I'm involved in. And then so I want to really run with that baton. We're called the Beehive at the moment, but I want it to be called the Beehive and more. We're passionate about mental health and well-being. I think it's really crucial. I think that, you know, the majority of human beings, you've either had an episode, you're having an episode, or you're going to have an episode of whatever that may be. Whether it's mild, whether it's minor, whether it's medium, whether it's, you know, I had 2 aunts that had they've got full-blown schizophrenia. One's passed and one's still alive. I mean, they'll never be the same again. But I want to embrace that and say, that's okay, come. You know, whatever your circumstances is that relates around it. I don't think in this country enough's done about it. In America, you're encouraged to have a therapy from really young.
To talk about it.
But in this country, it's all like taboo. Therapy. You're talking to someone. It's like...
Do you think that happens just in the black community?
No, I think it happens everywhere. I think because of our journey as black people, you know, when we were slaves back in the day, that hundreds of years ago, we were taught to be secretive. You know, the slave master would do these things to us, and it was beaten into us, sexually abused into us, verbally and emotionally ingrained in us to keep secrets. So we've just passed that on, you know, through
Yeah.
generation. So
I
everything's
think
a
that should
secret.
change now.
Well, I'm changing it. I'm
We
talking.
need to change.
I'm
People need
talking.
to talk. If you're not okay,
Yeah,
then you're not okay.
I'm
You
talking.
need to talk about it.
Because
you
what
need
it
to talk
does, it
about-
just stores in here.
Then
And
you're
it
not
stores
able
in
to
here.
sleep. Then you take medications.
Patient, you
it's
take
like your head
alcohol,
is going
drugs,
up.
you eat food, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever you choose to feed that, what you're hiding
Yeah.
and what you're keeping as this big secret. You know, it's like almost like an epidemic. It's an illness. It's destroying us.
Yeah. We need to speak out more.
It's
We need to
really,
speak
really
out more,
destroying us. So
honestly.
the way that they, for me, I think the way that we're told that we've got to have a GP and a dentist,
Yeah.
to me, we should have a GP.
Yeah.
For me, therapy, whatever type of therapy it is, needs to be encouraged from very young. If you see some young people at school and in nurseries, and you can see already that their mind is too heavy for
yeah.
them. And if we can see it as professionals in little young souls, then you see them growing up into teenagers, early 20s. You can actually spot it and see that even the youngest of children need someone to offload in.
Exactly. Oh God, it's been a very, very sensitive discussion. You know, just before we go, I want you to, you know, encourage those who, I don't want to use victims, whose family member have, you know, committed suicide or took his or own life. You know, what advice do you have for people around them? You know, especially for Christians who believes that this person, you know, has killed himself or herself, therefore she's going to hell or he's going to hellfire. You know, that kind of draw people back to want to even support, and you know, this is a family of sinners, isn't it? What is your advice for people who believes this myth?
I can change your minister or your environment, but this is what I believe and this is what I know for me to be true. And I only know it through experiencing it. You know, I believe and I know that my uncle is with my aunties who, one died of a cold, one died of cancer, and my grandmother who died of a heart attack. I know that they're together. I don't know if his journey was different getting there, but I know that they're together. For me, when someone takes their life, it's not a bad act of God, it's genuinely mental health. Where that brain goes, they're afraid. It's fear. And they're in a box, a very tight box, that they don't see no light coming out. The mind is a very powerful part of human beings. It might only just be in the head part, but it's actually more powerful than the physicalness of you. It's such a big part of the human being, and it's not easy. What goes on in our minds and where we've come from, and you know, as you're journeying on in life and the experiences and what you hear and what you see and what you learn, it's such a sensitive area of us, of the humanness, and it needs lots and lots of nurturing. It needs lots and lots of nurturing. I think it's going to be harder for people that don't reach out, that have lost someone. I'm talking now. But you have to acknowledge to yourself that you want help. You have to acknowledge to yourself that no man is an island. It takes a village to raise a child, which it takes a village to support a human, an adult, and that I really, really encourage you to go out there and get support. There is so much out there. I can name a few. There's an organisation called More to Life that I'm part of. I'm a trustee for Rethink, which is a mental health group. There's also bereavement, bereaved of the suiciders. They're the people who have lost somebody, and they're the ones who are left behind. And if you're part of a community or even a group or even a church or any faith, there will be people in that community
That
that will
can
be
help
more
you,
than
yeah.
willing. Honestly, they're waiting, and sometimes you'll often find that when you reach out for help, especially if it's people who you know, they've obviously, some of them have been waiting for you to come,
To come,
but
yeah.
they're trying to give you your privacy and wait for you when
and
you're
also
ready.
to make up their mind that they want to come.
Yes. So you've got to establish that you want help before you do anything. And once you've established that you want help, you go out there and you source it. You source it. I pray quite a lot. So people of faith, I pray quite often in a day. So I have a book that I write prayers in. I also pray in my car quite a lot, and I'm usually quite alone in my car. And I also go for a sauna and a steam twice a week, and I pray in there as well. I like to walk and pray when the sun's out. So, you know, whether you pray or whether you meditate or whether even people of no faith, you can still have a journal and just write down things that you are asking the universe for you or people around you, especially if you know that people are struggling. I also have a bottle at home that I call it my forgiveness bottle. And if I'm angry with myself or I'm angry with other people, they're going in that bottle.
So how do you get them out?
Well, what I usually do once it gets full, I just usually burn them and send them to God, and I'm really asking for forgiveness for me or for other people or for other things. Even though I teach forgiveness, that doesn't stop me from getting angry with either myself. And that's what usually tends to happen when someone dies anyway. You usually get angry with them because there's a saying, if you've got faith and someone passes away, the God side in you knows that God has taken them because he knows now that their work on earth is done, but he's got greater work in the spirit world for them too. But when you put that aside, it's the human side of you that grieves for the person, and it's worse when they've taken their own life. And so you have a choice. You can suffer alone, or you can admit to yourself and come to a place of acknowledgement and reasoning that you do want to do something about it. And there is a lot of different networks and support out there.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for coming today.
It's okay.
It's a mind blowing topic, and I hope that people will learn to speak out more.
The other thing, one last thing, in my shop, whoever's been there, I've got a beautiful, stunning picture of my uncle because he was a very good looking man.
Oh, did you
Very
put
tall,
him
6
there?
foot.
Oh.
And from the day we lost him, I put him in the shop, and there's not a day, there isn't a day that a customer walks in that shop and says, who's that man?
Oh.
They say, is he my husband? Is he my uncle? Whoever. And they say that something warms them to him. He's got a really beguiling smile, and he's very handsome. He was 6 foot. When he walked in a room, all women kind of went like that to him. But one of the reasons why I've got him there is because I see him that he watches over my shop. I know he'd be dead proud of me opening the shop. And also because he's drawing conversation. Because every time somebody asks who is it, I then say, sadly it's my uncle who took his life. So I've just got him here as his memories. And I've never met anyone that's not talked. They've either said, I know somebody, or, yes, it's really serious, it's high on the agenda now. So it's like, as he's like my angel in the shop, but actually it's a good talking point
So
to
people
encourage people to then talk about it. And then I've got leaflets and stuff that if anyone wants to get support, I can then give them a leaflet and signpost them to the right place.
Yeah.
Sorry, I stopped
No,
you in
that's
your
fine.
tracks.
And if you can pick everything that she said and you really want to contact her, you can contact me and I would definitely. She's
Yes.
a lovely, lovely woman.
Thank
I've
you.
known her for
Many years
many
now.
years now.
I interview you on my
And-
radio show.
And
Do you
honestly, do
remember?
you know that she was actually the first person to interview me in 2012?
Really?
Yeah, 2012, then 2013,
Wow.
when we were about to launch Affairs of the Hands.
Wow.
And today she's here. I'm
And
interviewing
interviewing
her.
me.
Yeah, you
And
were
it's
the
been a
first before
pleasure.
BBC Radio. And today she's here. So she was my mentor. And now
She's my mentor now.
so it's been a lovely, lovely evening. And I really want to encourage everyone to please speak out. It's okay to be sad. Mental health is not a bad thing, but seek help. And please, for those who have, taken their own lives, support their families. Love them.
Yeah, they
Find
need
out how
it.
they are. Find out, call them, send them messages. Just encourage them, because there will be time they will be lonely. There will be time they even want to take their own lives. But with your support
And that's very
love,
common.
yeah, with your support and love, you give them hope. Next week, we'll be bringing somebody who has actually attempted suicide.
Wow.
She's a wonderful woman, and she's now helping people with mental
Yes,
health.
well done.
And she's ready to talk about her story. Please, I want you to stay tuned next week, 11 a.m. normal time, and we'll be back on Wonderfully Made Woman Talk Show. I want to say a very big thank you to everyone who have watched, and I want to encourage you to share and, educate someone about what this is. Educate them to talk about it. People don't talk about it. And that is why Wonderfully Made Woman is making space to speak about the unspeakable. Same time next week, 11 a.m. the normal time. I'll be right back to bring my guest, who will be sharing her story and how she was able to overcome it to help other people. Until same time next week, always remember that you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're unique in your own way. There is hope for you because you are alive, and most importantly, that you are wonderfully made. Have a blessed weekend, and see you next week, Friday, 11 a.m. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you so,
Oh,
so
you're
much.
welcome. A pleasure, I tell you. A
It was
pleasure.
nice. Thank you so much. I really
I hope I
appreciate it.
answered things for you.
Oh,
the way-
yes, yeah.
But that would be a good one, actually, having someone who,
yeah, she's coming next week.
that's really
Yeah,
good.
She's coming
I
next
must
week.
put it 11.
11 a.m. Yeah, tomorrow. Next
But you
week,
can catch
Friday.
it afterwards as well, can't you?